Can a single balanced armature still compete in 2026? Hey viewers, welcome to Plug and Play. So everywhere it feels like the IEM market gets more and more crowded. One brand launches a hybrid with 4 drivers, another releases a tri-bit with 7, and before you know it, someone is advertising 12 drivers per side as if that's the only thing that matters. So when I first heard about the MAKINA Audio T100B, I was honestly surprised. A brand new company, a single full range balanced armature, no fancy driver count, no tuning switches, and a price of around $150. At first glance, it almost sounded outdated. But after spending quite a bit of time with T100B, I realized something. So let's take a look at the packaging here. It come with a very simple package. A leather pouch, big leather pouch, and it is very handy, and the texture and the feel is quite hard, and it is very solid, I would say. So inside here comes with the IEM itself. I've been using this IEM for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I got good feedback with wide bore air tips, bunch of air tips, 3.5mm modulation jack and 4.4mm modulation jack. So here's the simple package, very simple package. A leather pouch, the IEM itself, some silicone air tips for your convenience. So in this review, let's find out whether the MAKINA Audio T100B deserves your attention, or if it is simply another single balanced armature driver that's too late to the party. So before talking about the sound, I think it is worth talking about the company itself. So MAKINA Audio is still a new name internationally, but this isn't a random startup trying to enter the audio market overnight. The company has strong connections to Korea's custom IEM industry, and the tuning of the T100B was developed with the involvement of Byung Ha-sung, the CEO and chief engineer of Hidishan. So if you have been in this hobby for a while, you have probably heard of Hidishan. They have a long history of producing respected custom monitors, especially among musicians and enthusiasts who value accurate monitoring rather than exaggerate tuning. That philosophy becomes quite obvious once you start listening to the T100B. This isn't an IEM trying to impress you in the first 30 seconds. It is an IEM that slowly earns your appreciation over time. So let's talk about the specification. So inside the T100B is a single Sonion 2354 full range balanced armature driver. For acoustic tuning, MAKINA Audio uses a noise damping filter. The shell is made from transparent polycarbonate, and everything is manufactured in Korea. So let's have a look at the shell itself. Very transparent and transparent. And you can see the driver itself, the balanced armature driver, and it is pretty aesthetic, I would say. So here you can see the driver itself. So as I said, it uses MMCX connections, and the cable supporting both 3.5mm single-ended and 4.4mm balanced connections for roughly $150. That is actually pretty respectable package. So let's talk about build quality and designs. Moving on to the build quality, I actually like the design quite a lot. Nowadays, many companies try very hard to make their IEMs look expensive with colorful resin artwork, glitter, faceplate, carbon fiber inserts, or metallic finishes. The T100B doesn't do any of that. Instead, it has a clean, transparent shell that honestly reminds me more of professional equipment rather than jewelry. It is simple, it is functional, and personally, I think it will age much better than trendy designs. The shell itself feels solid, the finishing is very clean. I couldn't find any rough edges or obvious quality control issue on my review sample. For a brand making its first universal IEM, that is very reassuring. So let's talk about comfort and fit. Comfort is easily one of the strongest aspects of this IEM because the shell is relatively compact and lightweight. It is almost disappeared once you put it into your ears. I had no problem wearing it continuously for several hours while working, watching videos, or simply listening to music. Another nice feature is that you can wear it either over the ear or straight down. Personally, I almost always prefer over ear because it is more stable and reduces cable noise. But having both options makes the T100B a little more versatile for casual users. Isolation is quite good. It is more than enough for commuting, office work, or studying without completely disconnecting you from your surroundings. Cable. So let's talk about the included cable here. Honestly, this is better than I expected. It is soft, flexible, that doesn't retain much memory after being stored. The modular plug system is especially convenient. Switching between 3.5 and 4.4 millimeter connectors only takes a few seconds, and the mechanism feels very secure. Even the metal hardware feels well machined. Is it a premium aftermarket cable? No, but I also never felt the need to replace it, and that is the probability. That is probably the best compliment I can give for a stock cable. Drivability. One thing many people ask about single balanced armature is whether they require powerful amplification. Fortunately, the answer is here should be no. The T100B is very easy to drive. Even something as simple as Apple's USB-C dongle provides me more than enough volume. However, better sources still makes a difference. Using higher quality decks and DAPs, which gives you slightly better imaging, cleaner background, and a little bit more refinement. That's it. I don't think you need expensive desktop equipment to enjoy this IEM. In fact, I think it makes much more sense as a portable daily companion. Overall sound signature. Now let's get into the most important part. How does it actually sounds? If I had to summarize the tuning in one sentence, I would say the T100B is balanced, mature, and surprisingly easy to listen. This isn't an IM that is trying to impress you with overwhelming bass. It is not trying to shock you with ultra bright treble either. Instead, everything feels carefully controlled. Nothing dominates the presentation. Nothing sounds artificially boosted. And because of that, the T100B never feels tiring. In fact, I think this is one of the rare IEMs that actually becomes more enjoyable the longer you use it. Instead of giving you that instant wow factor, it slowly grows on you over time. And honestly, I think that is exactly what Makina Audio was aiming for. So let's talk about the bass. Before anything else, we have to remember what we are dealing with here. This is a single full range balanced armature driver. So if you are expecting the kind of physical slam and deep sub-bass rumble that you get from a good dynamic driver, you are probably looking at the wrong product. The T100B doesn't try to fake that. Instead, it focuses on something else control. The bass is quick, clean, and very disciplined. Kick drums have a satisfying attack without lingering too long. The bass guitars remain easy to follow even in busy tracks. One thing I really liked is that Makina Audio didn't try to boost the mid bass just to create the illusion of more bass. A lot of companies do that, and while it sounds impressive during a short demo, it often makes the whole presentation feel bloated. Here, bass stays exactly where it should be. It supports the music instead of dominating it. On acoustic tracks, jazz, indie, and vocal-focused music, this approach works beautifully because the low end never masks the mid-range. However, if your playlist is filled with EDM, hip-hop, or modern electronic music, where sub-bass is a major part of the experience, you may find yourself wanting a little more physical impact. So, this isn't a basshead IM for listeners who value speed, accuracy, cleanliness. I think Makina Audio made the right decision. So let's talk about the mid-range here. The mid-range feels incredibly natural. Vocals sit in the mix exactly where they should be. Male vocals have enough body to sound full without becoming too thick, while female vocals sound clear and expressive without tuning sharp. What impressed me most wasn't the vocals were pushed forward. Actually, they're not. Instead, everything feels proportionate. Nothing is trying to steal the spotlight. Because of that, instruments sound wonderfully believable. Pianos have realistic weight. Acoustic guitar have a pleasant sense of resonance. Strings maintain their sweetness without sounding overly bright. And thanks to the single driver design, everything shares the same tonal character. There isn't that occasional disconnect you sometimes hear in poorly implemented hybrids IEM, where the bass and treble almost sound like they're coming from different earphones. Everything feels unified here. Everything sounds coherent, and I think that is one of the biggest advantages of a well-tuned single balanced armature driver. So let's talk about the treble. Treble tuning is another area where T100B shows a lot of restraint, cause there enough extension to keep recordings sounding open and detailed, but Makina Audio never relies on excessive brightness to create fake resolution. Cymbals sound crisp, hi-hats remain articulate. String instruments have good presence here, but they never becoming piercing or any kind of fatiguing feel. Even after listening for several hours, I never felt the need to lower the volume because of treble glare. That, in my opinion, is a sign of mature tuning. Now, if you are someone who loves a lot of sparkle and air in the upper treble region, you might find the T100B slightly relaxed. Personally, I think it strikes a very sensible balance. Technical performance. So, how technical is it? Honestly, pretty good. But let's keep expectations realistic. You are buying a single balanced armature around $150 mark. You are not buying a multi-driver flagship starting with soundstage. The presentation is moderately spacious. It doesn't sound cramped, but it also doesn't create an artificially huge stage. Imaging, however, is genuinely impressive. Instrument placement feels stable and accurate. Whether it is a vocalist standing in the center or percussion placed towards the edges, it is easy to follow what is happening inside the recording. Separation is well executed here. Individual instruments remain distinct without sounding artificially or pulled apart. Layering isn't class leading, especially in very complex orchestral recordings, but that is simply one of the natural limitations of this type of designs. Detail retrieval is very good, not spectacular, not analytical, just honest. The T100B doesn't force micro detail into your face. Instead, it lets them appear naturally when the recording contains them. And personally, I actually prefer this approach. Who is this for? I think T100B has a specific audience. If you want huge bass, this isn't for you. If you are chasing extra amount of detail or brightness reference tuning, this isn't for you. Again, there are alternatives, but if you want something comfortable, something coherent, something you can listen for hours without fatiguing, something that simply sounds natural, the T100B becomes a very interesting option. It is that kind of earphone that quietly becomes part of your daily routine. So in short, let's talk about the pros here. Excellent overall balance, natural and realistic mid-range, fast, clean bass, smooth, fatigue-free treble, very comfortable fit, excellent stock modular cable, easy to drive, solid build quality, very coherent single driver presentation, made in Korea with quality components. So the cons will be sub-bass lacks physical impact compared to dynamic drivers. The sound stage isn't particularly large. Dynamics can feel a little restrained. Treble lovers may want more sparkle, and of course, MMCX connectors always raise long-term durability questions, although I haven't experienced any kind of issue during my review period. Final verdict. So, would I recommend Makina Audio T100B? Yes, but probably not for the reasons you might expect. It isn't the most exciting IEM I have ever heard. It isn't most technical, it doesn't have the biggest bass impact or the widest sound stage or the highest driver count. Instead, it succeeds by doing almost everything well. It is comfortable, it is practical, it is beautifully coherent, and perhaps most importantly, it is an earphone that it is an earphone that encourages you to keep listening instead of constantly analyzing the sound. I think that is something many modern IM forgets. Sometimes a product doesn't need to impress you immediately. Sometimes it just needs to make you want to play one more song. And that is exactly what Makina Audio T100B did for me. If you are looking for a mature, well-balanced everyday IM around the $150 mark, I genuinely think this is one you should put on your audition list first. That's it for today's review. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think about single balanced armature IMs in today's market. Do you think one driver is still enough, or has the industry moved too far towards multi-driver designs? I would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.